I'm reporting today from the media center, the G7 Media Center in Bari, Italy. The session today is the second session of the G7 Leader Summit in Italy that kicked off yesterday, and today the focus is on artificial intelligence as well as other global issues. Participating in today's events, the Pope Francis, as well as other invited guests. Earlier this morning, the Pope delivered remarks on regarding artificial intelligence, and the second keynote speech will be delivered by the current African Union president, the president of Mauritania. A review of yesterday's event. Yesterday was a big win for the African continent as well as for climate change. There were a lot of deliverables, a lot of commitment that were made by the G7 leaders regarding the continent, including investment from the private sector on the PGI infrastructure and investments project that the President Biden of the U.S. spearheaded 3 years ago that was launched, which include the ongoing projects in the Lobito corridor between Angola, DRC, and Zambia towards the Indian Ocean. The leader of the BlackRock and Microsoft made significant investments to the PGI project. So we will be giving you more updates, but again here the review from yesterday and the review from earlier today. We have one more day to go. Tomorrow will be the press conference and we will be bringing you more updates from there. Thank you. On the sideline of the G7 Leaders Summit in Puglia, Italy yesterday, the U.S. and Ukraine signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement that will bolster Ukraine's defense and ensure it can continue to protect and defend itself from current and future aggression. The agreement builds on the agreement that leaders made yesterday to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine using interest from Russia frozen assets from around the world.
Back in 2022, 2 days after Russia's invasion, members of the G7 and the European Union worked together to freeze $280 billion in Russian central bank funds outside of Russia. I'm very pleased to share that this week, the G7 signed a plan to finalize and unlock $50 billion from the proceeds of those frozen assets, to put that money to work for Ukraine. Another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down. In fact, we're standing together against this illegal aggression. The agreement that President Zelensky and I just signed also lays out our shared vision for a just peace, a peace rooted in the UN Charter and the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, a peace with a broad base of support around the world that holds Russia accountable for the damage it has done in this war. We will see this vision strongly affirmed at the historic peace conference happening in Switzerland this weekend, where Vice President Harris will represent the United States. Finally, this agreement accelerates Ukraine's integration into the European and transatlantic communities. It includes major commitments from Ukraine to implement democratic, economic, and security reforms.
Day one was at the G7 Italy was a big win for the African continent. The presidents of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, President William Ruto of Kenya, and the current AU president, the president of Mauritania, were some of the African leaders and government that participated in the G7 meeting. $5 billion investment from the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, and the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, we be deposited into the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, a G7 initiative that was launched 3 years ago by President Joe Biden. The leaders also agreed to make significant investments across the various sectors on the African continent, including investment in human capital to create an enabling environment for youth to thrive on the continent rather than taking risky trips across the Mediterranean. Also, they agreed to support the Italy Piano Matteo plan that was launched earlier this year by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Pope Francis, the first pope to speak at the G7, spoke on the importance of safeguarding and putting the right framework to safeguard artificial intelligence and the risk it poses to human and society. Lastly, the leaders discussed the situation and ending the war in Gaza and finding lasting peaceful solution to the war between Israel and Palestine.